Okay. And don't forget, because this is inoperable, I want to see my screen, you'll need to go ahead and log into the meeting. We are about 5 minutes early, but that's okay. It gives us hopefully some time to get out of here. The Nolan Plastics key, when you look in Module 1, the key for Nolan Plastics is loaded there, and that's what you would want to upload there for the assignment that's due on the 8th. That's a workshop assignment. Then you've got a couple of tests, exams are due on the 8th. We used GoalSeek there, and we played around a little bit using the total cost equation, doing some break-even analysis. And now we're going to move a little bit full-fledged into using the optimizer. So the very first thing I would like you to do is, once you log in on your machine, if you have to, is make certain that you have Excel, and make certain that you have Solver and the tool pack. If you don't, now the way to get to Excel is to go over to VMware. It's that upper left corner little green thing, and then you sign in using your desk number, and then once you've done so, then you're going to want to I'll just open this silly thing. Once you've got Excel open, if you want to make sure, if you have Excel open, then click on the Data tab, and those of you who are logged in now and on Zoom, as you'll see over here, you should have the tool pack and you should have Solver. And those, if they don't appear, then what you'll need to do is add them. Okay, so you click on File, and then you come down to Options. All right, and then you'll click on Add-ins. Hopefully, and you should see those specialized functions or extensions, they call them, that are there operating in your computer. You'll see those as active. Those that are inactive are down here, and if they're not active, then you just click them and then click OK, and you're set up. Okay, everybody, fairly clear on that? Yes. Okay, because we'll take our first look at Solver today. If you're wondering about readings, really the two things you have to kind of keep on track are the readings as far as the quizzes or exams. The second thing is when we're working with a particular case, you'll want to take a look at those pages as well, because that gives you the background of the narrative for the case. So let me pop us back up here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We're going to look at, and we've done Nolan, so we're going to look at Par Inc. today. That's one of the those that are signed, and it's over on page 32 through 54. So let's see if my digital textbook's going to line up with that. Somewhere else. And let me make sure. Unmute all. Okay. And I'm just going to have to scroll over there. Or you could just, I'd probably do a Par Inc. Oh, I'm in the wrong page. This is to search just the table of contents. I want to search whole bit. Pardon me. And I may just resort to just scroll over there. Par Inc. Oh, okay. And we want to, and the case narrative is over on page 32, or starts over there. Now, the authors talk about the fact that they call this a simple maximization problem. Now, the files for the Anderson cases are over. The files are over there in the file section. I think there's a zip file, and then also, if I'm not mistaken, I have Par Inc. out there for you to take a look at the key. If not, I'll go ahead and I'll make that visible right now. Okay. and I'll go ahead and publish it. Now, when we use the optimizer, there are one of three things we can do. We can either work with a target value, or we can try to maximize or minimize. Now, we use the words optimization for a simple reason. We're trying to take what we have in the way of resources and the constraints that we declare on them and achieve some objective function. Now, the textbook talked about, in chapter 1, about building models, okay? And iconic models are fine, mock or scale models. A full-blown model is fine, but come around. Yeah, that's supposed to be locked. And I get in trouble periodically for not leaving it, for going and opening it. Anyway, and what we know is this: is that if we can build a quantitative model, a mathematical model, it gives us a tremendous advantage. And the advantage is very simple: that we can use randomization functions to simulate thousands and thousands of trials. Now, people that are working in engineering use CAD and CAM systems and virtual systems. They can draw up a mock scale of things and see what it looks like, maybe even how it feels. We can't do that if we make a business decision, like we raise the price or we open up a new location, anything of that nature. We don't have that luxury. But what we can do is try to simulate the possible outcomes. As I spoke with you before, if there are two things you really should get from chapter 1. Number 1 is the difference between decision making and problem solving. Okay. And number 2, understanding that our decisions are neither black or white. They're typically along a continuum of really, really bad, what we expected, or really, really good. And so we have to be prepared for that. And we have to have that mindset that we're not going to get it perfect. So there's going to be some variability. The more variability there is in a situation, the more volatility, then we have more risk. And your first job as a manager, and certainly your first job as a business owner, or say a partner in a business, is risk management. That is, do as little harm as you possibly can. Because now, if you were in a secular college of business, they tell you because it's not good for the market and it could be bad for you. As people in the faith community, that notion of don't do harm means that we value the people who work for us, we value the people who buy from us, we value the people who are suppliers, we value the people who are key stakeholders as people who've been made in the image of God and deserve the best treatment we can possibly give them. The worst thing that you could do is go out and profess to be a believer and be very open about it and then be crummy at what you do. Because all that does is just turn people against the faith. And then they start associating you with crazy people and bad televangelists and folks like that. So your first job is to do no harm. And if that means not to do anything, don't open the plant, don't add the product line, don't hire all the new employees, then you may have to make that tough decision and say we're not going to do it. One of the things, and this is for us just as a business, as a profession, whether we are believers or not, whether we've been trained in business in a secular institution versus a Christian institution. And I guess you say, what do you mean by do no harm? Well, I'll just quote our Lord. He said, be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. There's a lot of wisdom in there. And he's telling us something. As business people, if any one of you, which is my hope for all of you, that you would ascend to the C-level, say, of a huge company, when you make a mistake and you shut down a plant or an operation and you kill off a town, Not good. Not good at all. And the public doesn't care much for business people these days for a simple reason. They've seen too many examples where a company would lay off 25 or 50,000 people, but the CEO would bail out with a golden parachute for $100 million. Now, what we're going to start to see, and we're seeing a little bit of it, is we're seeing shareholders coming back now and suing boards of directors and suing those principals like the CEO for basically malfeasance. And it's going to become more and more prevalent. It's very prevalent in Europe. There are some countries where you may not run into criminal penalties, but certainly civil penalties. And there are enough ways over here, particularly if you're a publicly traded firm, to get yourself in trouble. Well, all that being said, we're gonna look at Solver here. And so if you should see now Prime Inc. Key, you see it? There we go. Let's open that up for a minute and then download it to your desktop. So I'm just going to open, show it my folder. And then you'll want to take this and put it down on your desktop, and then you'll want to resave it and everything so you can make sure that you can upload it back. So I'm going to open it up now. All right. And you'll enable the editing, and then you can rename yours however you care to name it. Okay. Now let's talk about what we're looking at. Now, as is typical, when I give you one of these problems, I'll give you the background reading, and the background reading is pages 32 to 54 in the book. So that will give you the background about this company, what they're doing, etc. And this is a maximization problem. Now, you should hopefully have Solver open. So we're going to click on the Data tab, okay, and then click on Solver. Now, this is the Solver logic box or dialog box, and there are two tools in Microsoft, three tools in Excel that are, and you'll find them really, there's some other good spreadsheet programs out there, but Excel's probably the most iconic, most well known. Three things. First of all is the optimizer. The second is the ability to randomize quite easily. And the third is the pivot table. Those are exceptionally powerful tools that give us a lot of insights. Now let's take a trip to this and look through Solver here, and we start to see the parameters. And the first thing they do is they have a set and objective function. So as you're reading through the book, what the authors will do will lead you through the narrative of the case in this situation par, and then they'll start to build this mathematical model, and you'll see the objective function. That's the answer you want. Okay? With me? It's very, very important to remember that this is about doing the best that I can with the resources I've been given. Okay? The second piece of this is these are the data that you input into Solver or any optimization engine. The answer you get will be only as good as the data. Okay? You said, what do you mean? Well, you're going to have at your disposal, immediate disposal, when you're a decision maker, you're going to have historical performance data for your company. Typically, you'll have our sales levels or what we sold of that product or whatever. If you believe that the past is a prelude to the future, then fine. Okay. If you don't, that's a different critter. The second would be industry standards. If you have industry standards, then you have a benchmark, and you're going to hear that a lot, that you can use to compare your firm versus another. The best the best known benchmarks are the financial ratios. If you go over to you go over to one of these websites, or you go look at the reports if it's a publicly traded company, and you could look at their current ratio versus the industry, etc. The ratios wash the data and take out the distortions of size, okay? Because ratio data are the purest form of data. And those are helpful. Now, you've heard me mention KPIs, key performance indicators. When you go to work, you're going to see a dashboard typically, and it'll depend on the size of your company and your report level in terms of how sophisticated it is, or how much that KPI represents in company goals that feed directly into company strategy and help fulfill its mission. Okay? Now, the data are only as good as the people who put them in. Are they good data? And that's one of the things that it's quite easy to it's very easy to get beguiled by these beautiful mathematical formulas. And I'll give you a very good example. Back at the housing crisis, what was happening, a key part of that was people like Countrywide Mortgage were going out and making loans on houses to people that the loan could never be paid back. Or it assumed that there would be a 5 to 8% increase in the house by the time the balloon came due, or those people had to refi so they could survive. I remember getting stuff in the mail that they said, if you have this much money in your account, we will give you what we call a specialized note on a house, and you don't have to even go through credit check. That's insanity, total insanity. Some loans that were peddled out there were peddled not only for you could go in with no money down, buy a house full price, and they would let you furnish the house and borrow the furnishings. What a bargain to buy a couch on a 30-year note. And you say, how did they do that? Well, they did it because they got beguiled by the numbers, but they also did it because upstream, they had people who would buy packages of these loans. And I'm Countrywide, and I'm going to one of these large investment banks, and I tell them, look, there are 1,000 loans here. There's no way on the planet those 1,000 loans will all go bad. But what happened? Anybody guess? They all went bad. And pretty soon you see people on scene. I remember that when the market started crashing, the talking heads were going crazy, and people were saying, are they going to bail out the banks or not? Are they going to back up? One of them was the loan insurer. The company that insured the loans, and I think Warren Buffett stepped in and saved them. So I cannot emphasize enough to you that no matter how beautiful the model is mathematically, if you've got rotten numbers, it makes no sense to even play with it. So the numbers are important. As you look at these cases, remember that behind that should have been a lot of due diligence to ensure what we have. You got it? Okay. Now, let's look at this. We have our objective function. That's the answer that I want to get. That's what I'm after. And I have three choices. You'll notice there, maximum, minimum, and a value of. So I have a target value, okay, something I want to achieve, or I want to maximize, or I want to minimize. It's that simple. Using the tool is simple. Feeding the data into it, making sure you've got authentic, good data, that's the problem. And then when you get an answer, coming back and asking yourself, can I live with this? This is why I stress so much whenever you get a chance, if you're working with a set of numbers, use the randomization tools in Excel. Simulate what you might get. Does it make sense? If you always have that in your mindset, you'll go far. Because most people say, well, make a decision and we'll look for the right decision, and rarely is there a right decision. There are people this morning who sat and forecasted stock prices. They maybe even went on, CNBC, or they went on the nightly business thing, and they said, yes, I think Apple will be trading at about 100 or 1,000 share, whatever, and they're completely off. Why? Well, the market's volatile, and past performance is no indicator of future performance. Wall Street runs on sentiment. They have all kinds of program trading and on all these highly sophisticated models, and you have extremely intelligent people. But in the end, people can get spooked with bad news, and there it goes. So we've got one of these choices. We want to minimize, maximize, or we want to hit a target value. Okay, in this case, we want to maximize, and that's our profit. And the sell reference is over there at B18. Okay? Everybody see B18? Now, if you take a look, you're going to see the next set of data, the next piece of this, and that's the changing variable cells. And those are cells B16 through C16. Okay? That is, this company makes two types of bags, standard and deluxe. So they have two lines or two models of it. I think they make golf bags for golf clubs or whatever they do. But you've got, those are the things that we're going to change the variables, and we're going to try to decide how much do I make of each of these in order to maximize my total profit. Okay? This might not be any different than, say, I'm making M&Ms, and I want to have the optimal blend of the chocolate and then that nice little cover in the chocolate and the stamp. Are there any people in here who eat M&Ms? Okay, I see a few among us. Are they? They don't let you people eat candy anymore, do they? They try to force feed you healthy food, right? So here's what's going to happen. When you get to be my age, the Surgeon General will say, smoking is really good for you, and I'll eat all the fried food you want. That's probably what's going to happen. Maybe not. Let's hope that chemistry and physiology really works. But I'm trying to decide how many bags do I want to make of each. This is no different than if I'm an automobile manufacturer and I say, okay, how many SUVs do I want? How many trucks do I want to make? How many sedans do I want to make? General Motors is pulling all of their sedan manufacturing out of North America because they don't sell them. People buy trucks and SUVs. And usually, what color do you think they buy in this part of the country, the Southwest? Usually a white vehicle. Why is that? It's warm, so people buy a white car saying, well, if it's white, it won't absorb so much energy, so when I get in the car, it won't be so hot. Or they buy, if it's gigantic trucks, those tend to run in gray or black. You're out on this. Sometimes you'll see red, but the folks that make those vehicles try to juggle through their manufacturing system. How many of these models should I make? And for them, it's extremely complex because then they've got to go through this menu of stuff that you want on it, all the way from a gate that goes, a lift gate, from maybe you have a side panel that will go down. Maybe you have you can touch a button and the thing will raise up 4 or 5, maybe 6 inches to take you through water. Maybe come down for comfort so as you get out, all the options. So when they have to respond to market changes, it's a tremendous amount of work for them. This is a pretty simplistic problem, but it's intended to give us an insight into how a lot of this works. Now we're trying to decide how many standard bags we want to make and how many deluxe bags we want to make. and if you look up into the array A4, okay, over to, I would guess, say D9, you see those data in there: standard, deluxe, the time available, and then the operations. This is a pretty simple model because they're telling you, here's the stuff we got to do to produce each of the bags. Now notice the processes are the same. What makes the processes different? Venture a guess, anybody? Well, I sure hope you aren't this quiet when you're at work someday and your boss asks you a question. Won't be helpful. I might even threaten to go fetal. I've made that threat here, haven't I? I'll go fetal if you want to answer questions. This is not good. What do you think? What differs one model from the other? Take a look at what's there. Tell me. Huh? Okay, the variables, yeah. What's the key variable that's the difference between each of them? They have the same operations: cutting and dyeing, sewing, finishing, inspection, and packaging. But what differs for them? Huh? Yeah. What makes the standard versus the deluxe? What's the difference? The time, because the deluxe is probably what? Takes more time because it's more detailed. It has maybe more stitching or some kind of features on it that it takes more time to do with it. In fact, if you look at the two of these, the cutting and the dyeing, the sewing, the finishing, and inspection and packaging, let's see, the deluxe takes more time, okay, than the standard, except for finishing. But you could see those key components. So they've got to do that. Now there's a bit of a lesson here for us, because if you look there in row D, what is the title of row D? What's it called? What's the heading? The time available. So we're talking about the time spent making these. What we probably have here is a manufacturing setting, or an assembly, I guess you would call it that, where you have one bag that gets more, or type of bag that gets more attention because it probably has greater detail, etc., than the other. So we have time available, and you can see we've got the time that we've got to apportion it. So time is a key variable here. Now we can plug in some things like the cost of the material, that type of thing. We don't get that. But let's look here for a moment and come down to row 9. And what are we looking at in row 9? Profit per bag. Which bag do I make the most profit of? Standard. I make a dollar theoretically less than the deluxe. Okay? We got any marketing people in here? No any marketing people. One, who else? Okay. I have a standard and deluxe bag. If I'm going to try to go after a particular market niche, let's say I want to sell to affluent people, etc. Which one of these bags am I probably going to try to peddle to? You're going to put your ads in top magazines. You'll put banner ads over in certain websites. Which of these, if these are folks who purchase luxury goods, which one are you going to try to sell them, and why? The deluxe, exactly, because what? Yeah, it's higher quality. And people who want those higher quality goods and you can have them, they'll buy them. I can't remember what the article that I saw this weekend, but it was about, who is the guy? He's a billionaire, obviously. He's built the world's largest yacht, and has bowling alley and an IMAX theater. And I guess if you got that kind of money, hey, go for it. There's a Russian oligarch who has a huge yacht, but he bought people and manned them with submarines to protect him. He's scared somebody will try to take him out. And if you live in Russia and you're an oligarch, who's the boss man? Anybody know? Putin, exactly. So if you're a billionaire in Russia, when Putin calls, you answer the call. And if he doesn't like what you're doing, you might disappear, your boat blow up, or somebody come in, you're in London and they put poison in your food. That's one way to run a government. But we've got these two items here. The one is deluxe, the one that's standard, and we have these cutting and dyeing, sewing. And again, these times that we've got allocated for them are based upon industry standards, should be, upon our historic data. We may have even set up a small production run and run a few bags on a trial basis, maybe 100 or 200 or whatever, in order to see what it looks like. Okay? So we've got the profit per bag, we've got the time available to work on them for cutting and dyeing, sewing, finishing, and inspection and packaging. And so then we come down to the model. Now, we're going to change those cells. And we have some constraints. And we'll see these right here. Okay? Now, the constraints are what? Well, let's look at them. One is called, amazingly enough, I don't know if you'll understand this or not. This is a really, really, really very challenging concept. One of these is the left-hand side and the right-hand side. LHS, left-hand side, very sophisticated. I don't think you can grasp this. I'm being facetious. I'm being facetious. Why do they call it left-hand side and right-hand side? Well, what do you think? Is it left? Is it right? So instead of using some kind of fancy terms, they say, well, these are the constraints, and let's look at it. We have the hours used versus the hours available. And we use some Boolean logic or some mathematical operators there to guide our thinking. And what are they telling us about cutting and dyeing? What's the constraint? Huh? Okay. And the operator there, that mathematical operator, what's it telling me? That little arrow and that equal sign, what's it saying in English? Okay, it's saying that the cutting and dyeing, the time I spend on cutting and dyeing must be equal to or less than the hours available. Why would I have that type of constraint? What do you think? You got any management people? Okay, go ahead. You were going to say. Okay, why would I have that? Why would I have that constraint built in? I can't go over my hours available. If I do, I'm probably going to end up doing what? Wasting some time or paying overtime, having to bring in some new people that cost a lot of money to train and get ready for a production run. So I have so many hours budgeted, and that's all I've got. So I have a constraint. And it works the same way for sewing. It works the same way for finishing and inspection. This is a simple maximization problem with a simple set of constraints. Does that make sense? You say, I thought management science was going to be a course where I'd get sick every day and I'd be traumatized and all of that. If you would like me to do it, I'm happy to. And if you don't feel like you're getting your money's worth on the course, here's what you can do. Every week, for every case, you can solve the problem using an algebraic formula, and I would like you to chart the feasible area on a chart and get it to me on a nice old-fashioned graph paper and use a pencil. Otherwise, you can use this tool. The nice thing is the tool will do the work for you if you will work the tool. And that is, you'll get the data and you'll think your way through. Now, if these folks, they have a constraints on their time, they only have so much money in their budget, so they can only budget so many hours, etc. So now we come down to another piece of this. And it says, make unconstrained variables non-negative. Okay? So we don't want to play with anything that puts us in the negative territory, and we check that off. And then we come to the solving method. Now it says simplex LP right there, and do this. Click on the down, and you'll see the GRG nonlinear, and then the evolutionary. Now I've written the publishers of this textbook that I want that word evolution removed from solver, and they're not listening. I want a biblical solver. I will not accept an evolutionary model. Are you with me? I think it's worth taking them to court. I'm offended. I'm being whimsical today. It's Monday. Why not? Anybody have a cigar? No. That's a good answer. Very good. All right. Talk about this for just a moment. And as we work through the course, we're going to work with some of these other models. But right now, we're working with a simplex LP. And what we're assuming is that the data fit roughly a linear trend. Okay? That's all it means. So we're assuming that, for example, if costs go up, prices will go up. If the cost of our goods go up, we'll sell it for a higher rate, or vice versa. We're assuming that we live in a world that's linear. Okay? That's all. Now, how you come to that assumption would be if you look at the data historically, and if they look like that, or if you've got some industry data, which is even better, and they look like that. Okay? Most of the problems you'll run into in business fit the simplex LP model. So you're going to see a lot of that. So what you're saying is, I believe the data tend to be distributed with an x-axis and a x-axis and a y-axis, and it kind of looks like a linear trend. I know all of you are going, sound like stamp. I understand. I understand completely. I had a stat professor who liked to go through the problems. The late Dr. Rue Piper, he was at OU, and if you didn't get the answer right, he threw chalk at you. Yeah, that was in the old days. He'd smoked like a chimney. He cussed at us, threw chalk. It was amazing to me. I had the second highest average in stat class ever recorded, and it was a 29. He humbled you quickly. But the one thing he did impress on me, other than the ability to move and duck and weave, okay, was thinking statistically, the logic of it. And here what we're saying is that we assume that things, as one variable changes, the other one changes correspondingly. That's a big assumption. Okay, so we've got that worked through, and now we're going to click Solve. And it will give us the report functions. Now we can either keep this solution if we want, or we could restore the original values. And you'll notice on the side there, the reports, okay? And we're going to talk through them as we go through the course. The answer report, the sensitivity report, and the limits. Here's the way to think about them. The answer is what I get, i.e. the objective function. Then I have a tool, that's the sensitivity report, that lets me look at which variable here that I'm working with tends to promote the greatest change. Sensitivity analysis does that. If I have a financial portfolio and that portfolio increases, 20% a year, and I've got, 10 stocks in it, for example, and I've got one that's going up 30% a year, then if I do a sensitivity analysis, it's pretty easy to see that one stock's driving everything. So the sensitivity analysis, that will tell us how changes in this variable impact. It's a lot like marginal utility. That makes any sense. Anybody remember marginal utility? Marge, I dated her once. And that didn't work, so I dated her sister, marginal cost. It's a bad joke. But it's like marginal utility. If I add one more unit or allocate one more unit to a particular variable, how does it change my output? Okay? And then I get another thing that shows me the limits. And I have an outer limit and I have how large this could go or how small it could get. I have limits that I look at. Think of it like maybe standard deviations, or maybe how stuff's distributed. Let's better it how stuff is distributed, say, along a Gaussian curve, because we're assuming they're linear. Okay. When you get up in the morning, are you excited about objective functions? You excited about linear trends? You get them and go, man, I can't wait to work with Solver. No, you're missing out. All right. So as we work through this, we'll be able to see those reports. Now, the one final thing is two things. I can either cancel it or I can save the scenario. So I can handle it like a scenario analysis. You say this could not be this simple. It truly is. The tool is simple. What's not simple is your background and the ability, the efficacy, if you will, in terms of what you get when you run this is going to depend upon how long you've been in an industry, how much you understand a particular process or set of processes. Okay? It's an experience thing. And that's why if you go to work for someone, it's going to be a rough ride until you've mastered the learning curve and you know what to do. You really have it down in terms of what's going to happen. So you'll go out to your first job, maybe you'll go as a management trainee, who knows, and you'll start to learn the business. And you'll start to say, oh, okay, yeah, this doesn't work. We know that when a company closes, when a company lays people off, on average, all firms, $25,000 worth of knowledge walks out the door with them. That's a lot of money. And you may not put them through $25,000 of training or pay their way through school, but they take that knowledge with them. In knowledge-driven firms, universities, pharmaceutical firms, engineering firms, firms that are basically informational in nature, the average employee, when they leave and walk out the door, they take about $100,000 worth of knowledge with them. I work at a knowledge firm. I retail knowledge. Don't I? My daddy retailed food. I'm retailing knowledge. Sometimes I produce a little, but not much. I'm still in the retail. My family is still in the retail game. No reality TV shows yet. That's my hope for the next generation. I don't think that'll happen. So we're going to go ahead and let's click on this and let's just cancel this because we don't need the reports. But let's look at some of the questions that we've raised here, okay? And I said, we're going to use solver to obtain the left-hand side of the right-hand side using these changes in the constraints. And so what we did was we changed the constraint of standard die cutting and dyeing. Then we reduced the sewing and reduced the inspection and packaging. And then the time available is 95% of current levels. I plug those variables in. Now let me ask you something. Why would I have made those changes? Or ask you to make those changes and turn the thing in? What's happened here? Why am I reducing these or changing these? Any ideas? Did you guys have breakfast? No breakfast? Okay. No cigarettes, no Red Bull, no candy bars. You guys really didn't have breakfast. You gonna eat lunch? You gotta have breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. If you don't believe me, go down at the end of Kickapoo. McDonald's has good breakfast. Cracker Barrel has fantastic breakfast. So before you come to class or you go to class, drive down to Cracker Barrel and have about 4 scrambled eggs, a big pile of sausage, maybe some pancakes and syrup, and you're good. You come in, you're hungry, you can't think, you can't eat. I can tell. I mean, if I handed out candy bars right now, I'd see a whole different. Now, you're not going to see this, but your kids will. One of these days, when you send your child off to elementary school or maybe to preschool, they will probably have neonatal school by the time you're my age. And you'll say, I'll pay $100,000 to have my child in fetus. I'll have a program so that when they come out, they do their multiplication tables immediately, and perhaps speaks French. You'll have to do that so they get into the best schools. And then they'll give you smart pills. Now, the people at Harvard, your cohorts up there, they're using smart pills and some drugs and stuff that make them smart. You didn't know about that, didn't you? You haven't heard about that? Oh, they've got some kinds of wacky thing going on. But you will literally have knowledge poured in your head one of these days. They'll put a chip in and you're good to go. Here's the management science chip. Chip. I need to do it this primitive way. This is primitive. This is not how they do it on Star Trek. Is it? Anybody watch Star Trek? What? Oh my gosh. I'm going to pray for all of you. All right. So I changed these variables. What was I doing there in changing the variables? What was the point? Okay, maximize the profit. But let's look at cell F5. What have I done with the time available? Have I increased it or decreased it? Which is larger, 1 or 0.95? 1. So I've reduced that by 5%. Now, this is one of the other things about this tool that's so useful for us. Let's say that I've been told, well, we have another product line. You make bags. Maybe you have another product line, and we have a special order coming through. So we've got to make certain that we get the special order out. So we're going to need 5% more resources, or maybe 10% more resources. I can then temper this to handle my constraint problems in terms of the entire operation. That makes sense? Now, the next time do any of you eat fast food? Or are you these heathen that don't eat fast foods? Frankly, if you don't eat fast food, I really don't believe you should be a citizen of this country. Gather you up and put you outside. Fast food it's the American way. and around the world. See, the people around the world, they don't know that inside each of them is a middle-class American struggling to get out. And some of those people over there don't know that's our oil. They haven't understood that. That's my oil. If I have to go get it, I'm going to do it. As soon as they accept that, the better off we'll all be. So I'm trying to load balance my plant. And so it's okay, I'm going to cut, for this operation, I'm going to cut 5% off. So I can fulfill maybe a special order that's come through. Make sense? There's a lot going on here. Now, just for kicks, let's do this. Instead of 0.95, let's change that, and let's make that 0.90, and let's see what happens. Okay? And we get some we get some changes there. I'll go ahead and open Solver, and I'm going to solve. And it gives me an answer. Have we maximized our profits? Are they more or less? They're less. They're less because of what? If we're spending less time making bags, will we make more or less bags? We'll make less. Okay. How many of us have ever worked on a farm? Anybody? Ever worked on a farm? One. Okay. Where was it at?
It's West Texas.
Okay. What was it? A ranch or was it a truck farmer? Huh?
It was a ranch.
Ranch. So what did you do? You fixed fences because you got to have fences to keep the stock in, right? Yeah. My mother and father, when I was a youth, every summer sent me to work for my grandma up in Iowa. You know what they make in Iowa? Do you? Corn and pork. My job every day was to go in and slop the hogs. Nasty creatures. Huge, 600-700 pound little behemoths. And when they're hungry, they're hungry. So they had a whole pile of corn stalks, and I took a shovel with a pair of waders up to about here and walked through and hoped that one of them didn't knock me down, because if you got knocked down, you would get trampled. You could get hurt pretty bad. And pigs are not stupid. They figured out quickly the man with the shovel has come to feed me. The man carrying what looks like a hypodermic needle may not be my friend. And it was interesting when there would be times I was there and I could hear them get ready to go to market. Woo, you never heard the racket. They'd back a truck up and it started. Because they knew they're not going to Disneyland, and they sense that. And pretty intelligent animals. If you've not had a chance to work on a farm or work in a factory or go through a factory, it would be an education for you. Now, management majors, I know you're supposed to take a production course. And I hope you get to see a production facility. Have you ever been in a factory interview? Or it's an amazing thing. And they have to have tools like this to make everything work out. Well, we went and took the time here to 0.90. We reduced it. We got different. And because we're making less stuff, the profitability is less. Let's go back up and make it 95. And we'll be back to stasis. Does this make sense? Yes? I hope you'll understand and buy into the logic of what's here. If you think like this as a manager, you'll be much better off. Now, there's one final thing we didn't talk about, and then I will send you into the world. It's the law of unintended consequences. Even with all of these beautiful models, with all the rigor we can put into them, etc., you should always be prepared for unintended consequences. Anytime you change a system, you get unintended consequences. The housing crisis of 2008 is a good example. Starting with Bill Clinton carrying through with young George. I like to call him Boy George. We pushed homeownership as a way for people to gain wealth, to build wealth, especially for folks who were really struggling. So we made it easier for them to buy homes. But if we didn't make it easier to pay for the home, we experienced the law of unintended consequences. Most of you were but we 10, 11-year-olds, probably unaware of all that. When the next one comes, you'll be aware. Okay, my friends, thank you so much. This is PAR Inc. A little bit of wisdom for us. And the key is open there. So that's the one you want to upload for the PAR Inc. case. Any questions? I don't know about add drop if it's over or not. You're finished. We're done. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you have some questions about it later on, shoot me an email and I'll try to answer them, and I will see you online Wednesday. Yes. Friday's a virtual lab. You work on your homework, do your tests, and all that. That's what it's for. No. This Friday, I think I have virtual office hours, but I don't have any. Friday is a variable day because I'm out doing stuff. And,
I just want to make sure.
yeah. Oh, yeah. No.
Do you want us to upload the file?
Yeah.
Module 1?
Well, this is the file. This is PAR Inc. So wherever I ask you to upload it, go ahead and upload it there.
Well, there's a continue.
Yeah, there's a PAR and continue, which we'll do later on and look at that. So that's a separate assignment. But yeah, PAR Inc. is on down in another module. But for this module, where I tell you upload PAR Inc., there's the key, upload it. Got it? And then we'll talk about M&D, which is going to also be due, which is due on the 15th. So we're a little bit ahead. That's okay. Everybody else good? All right.
Well, we haven't done the M&D one yet.
We have another what?
M&D one yet.
We're going to look at M&D. I'll do M&D on Wednesday. Yeah. Question? Oh, okay. Now, what have you got in the jug?
Water.
Water. Okay, so because where I grew up, what you had in the jug was typically, well, it was made at home.
It was easy to make. Yeah. A few teachers asked me that too. So I'm like, yeah.
Nah. So you're hydrating?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Take care now.